is common is the smock, which I'm wearing now. And you can find it all across the north. It just comes in some few varieties, I may speak, and based on the texture of the material and based on how it is sold.
Okay, and there are so many varieties. There's the Daboya small, which is highly rated. There's the Camp Cocker, which is made in Yendi. Camp Cocker means uniform feathers because the smoke has the same colors as the uniform. And then, of course, there's the very colorful types of smoke made in Boko. So, when we talk about the Mole Dabani group of people, these smokes are spread all across there. And talking of language, Dr. Campbell, can you say something about this Mole Dabani or Mabia languages?
So, Prof. Adams Godomo is the one who is really at the forefront of pushing Mabia, in the sense of kinship, all descended from the same. In terms of language as well, about 20 years ago, I got a chance to go to Burkina Faso and learn a little bit of Maori. So, Lischibare, Kayure, Kayume, all these types of things. And what you find is that there's a continuum of languages. So, just as Mandiara said previously, that if you can understand, one, it can be an entry point into lots of the others. And I think about this oftentimes in linguistics. Usually languages are represented on a tree with branches, right? So it's a linguistic tree, a linguistic family. Now, that's an abstraction because when you go to a place like the Botanical Gardens, the Greek Botanical Gardens, you'll see that there are trees with branches that interweave, and the branches grow together, so they branch apart, and then the same tree, the branches can grow back together. And I think that this is what we can see, that all humanity has a common origin, but we've gone in different places, and then we come back together. And I think that this is also something that is shown, with the languages, the Mabia languages as well.
Thank you so much. Incidentally, all those languages are from one group, the group, except Goja. Goja is the exception because Goja belongs to the one group of languages. Okay, and then you have watched the film beyond the area that the film covers. I seem to see some kind of connections with the Sahelian, the Mande group of people. Can you say something concerning that?
Yeah, it's very interesting. When you look at the elder who was being interviewed, who was wearing the green, right? So he talks about the hunter Tohaji, who goes and there's a buffalo that won't allow the people to drink, so he goes and is able to, take out the buffalo, and then he gets a reward that he can choose any woman, and he chooses a lame woman. Has anyone in the audience heard or read the epic of Sunjata? Sunjata. Some people say Sundiata, but Sunjata. It's probably one of the most famous epics out of Mali. And in Sunjata, which takes place in the 1200s, 1300s, thereabout, it is almost the exact same story of there are hunters who are going, and there's a buffalo who won't let the people drink. So from there, it sparked off questions of, is this story identical? Is it the same people and the names are different?
Or probably the same hunter.
The same hunter, right. So this is, the question. So I think it requires further research. But what we see is a storytelling tradition that's the same, and even possibly the same people just using different names to refer to those people in the narrative.
So we seem to have a pool of myths from which all of these people are fetching and using. Because a hunter kills a buffalo, picks, in the Sundiata story, he picks a hand-packed woman and gives to the king. In this other one, he picks a lame woman. So the same pool of myths that we are taking from. So as a researcher, I'm always interested in methodology. So how did you set about doing the book?
So thank you. First of all, I started the research by hearing oral history. So like I started saying, it was like a personal journey for me. And I was born and raised in Accra, and going back home, I always encountered people who were like, try to speak the language with me, and I am not very fluent at it. So they were like, man, you cannot be this person that you don't understand the language. I'm like, why? They're like, man, because you're from this place and you cannot be someone who don't know your way about. So then through that, they started telling me history about myself and about where I come from, and I think this was the beginning of the research for me. So first of all, I had an encounter with oral history where I had people telling me about it, and then I started doing research. And one of the key people that I enjoy reading about his work is Dr. Iliasu, and writes a few books on Northern Ghana. So it took me about 3 years to be certain of the history. And the idea of doing this film was also to prove the research that I had done over the 3 years period to see whether it really tallies with what I had found out. So I decided to interview people who are direct descendants of the subject matter, which is Nyadewa, and trying to get the history from them. Now the other thing was that I felt like, how when information is transmitted down to a person, it can be skewed in a way. So I decided that, okay, to be able to get the information right or to get my research right, then I could interview maybe over 13 people on the same subject and have them tell me the same history. Then with that, I could fish out some of the dynamics that goes wrong and how to be able to filter all the information and get the right kind of vibe from it. So basically, this were the methodologies that I used after my research to prove the research with a friend.
That was certainly a very vast territory covered.
Thank you.
Then, Dr. Campbell, would you think there is any symbolism connected with a snake that is associated with Mambo?
I would, just like how we were talking earlier about some of the pool of myths, you find all throughout Africa, throughout space and time, the symbolism of the snake. So if you go, for example, to Benin, in their creation story, they talk about Da Aido Credo as the snake at the beginning of creation, who is underneath the ocean and spins, and that sets the world in motion. You can also go, and it's depicted as a snake that has its tail in its mouth. If you go, I got a chance to go to Egypt, to the Egyptian Museum, and on the bark, the ritual bark of Tutankhamun, who they call King Tut, it depicts him with a snake, again, with its own tail in its mouth. Now, the significance of the tail in the mouth is the idea that the beginning is the end, and the end is the beginning. So it goes into an African concept of time, things repeating and repetition. So, if we look at just one, linguistic group or cultural group, then we may just take it, as, okay, there's just one thing. But even this cane that I'm holding is coming from Tanzania. It's called Yamin Yamin. You see on the top is the depiction of the snake-like creature, which is said to live, in the river there. So all throughout Africa, the snake, has significance and is depicted, in certain ways. And, I think that this is a continuation of that same pool that all of us as African people are drawn from.
And continuing to Mandela, there seems to be a conception that Northern people are very belligerent. Well, they like fighting. So what do you say about that?
I like that way a lot because it's also one of the reasons I made the film. Because it's like in Ghana, a lot of people know the North or Northern people as aggressive. I wanted to also shine a light on who they were and their personality, Because the North, unlike the southern part of Ghana, are warrior groups of people who are traditionally there's warlords and hunters. And what power means to the north is different from what power means to the south. So in the south, power means wealth, and power means what you got. But in the north, power means strength. So if you are powerful enough to take over a place, that shows that you have the power. So the dynamics is different. So I wanted also people to kind of understand where the North is coming from and where some of their personality traits come from, so that they can best understand them when dealing with Northness and be a little discreet about how they handle issues, because we are not the same, even though we all are part of Ghana. And it's important that people know that this is the warrior group. And if you come to the south, basically you realize that the smoke is also popular among all the Akan ethnicities and all the other ethnicities. And when they are going to war, they wear smoke. This shows you that the smoke is also associated to a warrior group of people. And that is why all the other kingdoms in Ghana or ethnicities pull from that to use that to represent them when in time of war. I would like to put it that way. Yeah.
To encapsulate that, there is a saying, if we can take the proverbs and wise sayings of the people as their philosophy, the proverbs have a saying, that he who has strength has the right. So if you are strong, whatever you do, you are right. That underlines it. Anyway, Dr. Kambon, I've been calling him Kambona, and among the Dagoba, the Kambona is the commander of the Musketeers. So we have a warlord here. So we are safe. Okay, Dr. Kambon, what other impressions do you have about the film?
Yeah, I also wanted to briefly touch on the smoke, also going into cultural unity, beyond just the North. Dr. Ntewusu, also our colleague, when we were going for African Studies Association of Africa and Nigeria, he was doing research on textiles and the connection between textiles in Nigeria, going across northern Benin, northern Togo, and then to the north of Ghana. And I found it to be very fascinating because when you look at the woven ashobi and the danshiki and all of these things, it's the same style that you find in the smock. And they have one smock that has a guinea fowl type of pattern and design. And exactly, in Yoruba it's called etu, which translates to guinea fowl. So you find, this type of continuity. And from his research, he was trying to go to the archives to see, okay, where is it dispersing from? And it also ties into another conversation that I was having with one of our PhD students about kente, that the Asante people were trying to go to the UN to have kente enshrined as, the cultural heritage of the world. And she herself is Asante and is the queen mother of Asante, of an Asante place. And she said that the Asantes can't claim to own kente because weaving is a shared, cultural feature all throughout West Africa. And, when she went to the north, she said that she interviewed people from the north and they said, okay, when you look at Asante, do they even grow cotton there? And I thought it was a very interesting question. So to say, okay, we own this particular thing because sewing in strips and then, weaving the strips and then sewing them together, we found in the north, that's the same, we say technology behind kente, the same technology but among the Yoruba, Ashoke, and so forth and so on. So really, to me, a major reflection is that, we are one people, even though we have multiple expressions, different manifestations. So even though these people may do this in this way, these people may do this in that way, we could either choose to focus on the differences, and that's where we get the belligerence that was talked about earlier in the film, or we could choose to focus on some of the similarities. And when we see that, I think that that's really the way forward, beyond even the Goa, the Mapia, and so forth, to us as African people, and I think that's what African Studies has to offer.
And yeah, I'm sure you gathered a lot more data than you could put in the film. Were there other aspects of life among all of these people that think bring out their similarities beyond what you put in the book.
Thank you. Sure. I really had quite a number of a chow. I like to put it like chow data. We had to travel 12,000 kilometers across the three northern regions working at us, so it took to produce this film. So in traveling on the journey, I found a lot of information regarding the northern part of Ghana. Before I go in there, I wanted to also touch on the issue about Asante and they trying to claim that weaving started from them. I feel like it's very interesting because if you realize when they had that encounter with Dagon, because I don't term it as a contest because it was not. And one of the agreements that Asante had with Dagon was that each year they were going to give them about 500 pieces of clothing as part of the agreement. So my question is, if you had clothing and if you had weaving, why do you seek this clothing from somewhere else? My little research is that from the time immemorial, a lot of the Akan ethnicities were wearing the bark of trees, what you call the raffles, you know? So this was their, okay, so in Tree Island it's called Chen Chen. So this was what a lot of the Akan groups were wearing. The bark of the tree were used as clothing, whilst the northern part of Ghana and Nigeria, like you're saying, were wearing clothing, they were wearing smocks, because they knew weaving, they knew the technology a long time ago. So it would be difficult for Asante to really claim this if Asante was just founded in 1702. And even this kingdom that we're talking about history from 11th century. So the correlation is not there. You cannot really argue with it. In terms of what binds them together, and which is one of the things that I really wanted to explore as part of my narration. I also wanted to use this film as a tool to promote peace in the North, in the essence of educating these people about how they are all connected to one another and what binds them and what could let them forge that unity and create more prosperity for the North. And so apart from the schemes that they use or the kings or the rulers use that they sit on, because like down south the rulers sit on stools, and so that's why they call it enstolment. In the north they sit on skins, and that's why you call it enskinment. Now apart from this, and they share in this same tradition, you realize also, like we said earlier on, the language, first of all, their food. I think it's very interesting to mention this because, you know, they almost prepare the same dishes irrespective of where you are in the North. You get to taste exactly the same.
What people know as Kizek, the traditional name is Sagri, and that's the name in all of the Mole languages.
Exactly. So these are all the dynamics that involve. Also, the kind of weapons they use in terms of war is all similar. You know, they are cavalry people, they use the bow and arrow, they use spears, they use knives. These are similar things that are all connected to all of them. And so, yeah, but basically it's apart from the food, like I mentioned, food, language, costumes, and basically folk tales.
Because you have the same, down in the south is Anansi, but up in the north, there are different names for Anansi. Patendaraga among the Gumbes, Badari among the Kakaba. And also one corpus of stories that is very widespread is the White Side and the Chief stories, Ghana stories, spread all over.
Thank you for that issue.
Also, just wanted to briefly also touch on the cloth issue and then also the food issue. The other complication with the Asante weaving story is they talk about, I actually have done research at Bogere, so I'll go and interview the Kintehene. And what they say is, Otaka, Bain, Krebu, Amayao, that these are hunters. They went out and then they saw a spider weaving, and then they came back and they were inspired to start with Asase Toma, which is a weaving on the ground, and then proceeded to Ayase Toma, which is, and they said they use raffia, which is, where they tie it here to their belt, basically, and then it went all the way up to a loom. And they said once they came up with the innovation, they ran and showed the Asante in it. Now, the complication with the antiquity of that story is we know that Asante was founded in 1700, thereabout. So that means if you have any weaving in the sub-region older than just 1700, then you've trumped the story. So I think that's a complication that wasn't foreseen at that point in time.
So probably they should just drop it.
Okay, so I'll leave it in case I get involved.
I'm sure the audience would like to ask a few questions. Anybody with any questions? If not, I will go to Madia to round it up. So, what is the way forward now? What are you going to do? You've made a your film. So, what do you expect? What is your next step?
Okay, thank you. Like I said, this is my first film. I'm a self-taught filmmaker, and funny enough, I didn't do any short film. I just went straight to a feature. And so, in going forward, I really look forward to doing more films. But particularly for this project, like I said earlier on, it has two main objectives. And the short-term objective, apart from educating people about the history and about their oneness, is to promote peace in the North, which I mentioned earlier on. But the long-term aim is that the point is after peace, then what next? That's something that I ask myself every time. So I think after peace is development. And if you watch the North and the South, there's a big gap in terms of development, which was done intentionally by the British to keep the North backward because they were scared if the North took over the country. It was difficult to go through it, other than the liberal Southerners who were more easily to maneuver through. And so in the long term, I'm looking at also building a university in Northern Ghana in honor of Nadewa. As of now, we have a 50-acre land in Northern Ghana for the project. We have the architecture of the university, and we are working towards making this happen in the long term.
Probably I'll add a project to you in terms of promoting peace. Look at the Ethiopian relationships that exist between the different ethnic groups in the North. That's a way to explore to build peace.
So before we go, I want to also add, like you said, thank you for the suggestion and the advice. I'm going to take it. But also there's something that I'm working on, which is called the Nadewa Unity Deba and the Peace Dialogue, where it's a day to bring all the chiefs, all the rulers from all the three northern regions together to celebrate their oneness and what binds them together, and also to set up a platform for a conversation for them to dialogue. Because I think that some of the problems in the North is because there is no dialogue, there's no direct communication between the rulers of the place, and if they had communication, it will ease some of the tensions which come up between them. So this I look forward. We had the first lunch with the chiefs, and we had over 13 kings from the three northern regions come at the Tamale Sports Stadium, and it was the first process of sensitizing the chiefs about their own history and about starting that process for the peace. So thank you very much.
I wanted to share something, and I think if people haven't gotten a chance to go to the North, they should definitely try to. I just came back from the North with Mandiaya. We had a group of about 14 or 15 people, and I mentioned something about the food, that if you look at things like kimchi, fufu, the foods of the South are made out of maize, are made out of plantain, they're made out of cassava. None of those foods are indigenous to Africa. Again, none of those foods are indigenous to Africa. To really understand the foods that we were eating as African people, you have to go to the North. That's where you get the millet, the sorghum, the yams, those are still here in the South. But all of the staples there are the things that we were eating. So I would just encourage people who haven't gotten a chance to go to the North. You can join me in Mandiaya on one of our road trips. and, just open our eyes. Sometimes we get comfortable in the South here in our pride, but there's so much there. There's a rich history, so. Okay, yeah. Okay, this isn't a short point, but when we look at things like, even in the language, when we say something like Chale, the Chale translates to hat. So what you're saying is is to remove and then roll for your benefit, Chale hat. So people are saying Chale, even though in the South nowadays people aren't really wearing hats like that. So it's become almost, a figurative expression to say Chale. You're saying I'm taking off my hat for you, but we're not wearing hats. But in the North, you can find, again, in the writings of Alo Mari, a historian, that they talk about removing the hats in the presence of the ruler. Also, Medasi is saying, I lay on the ground for you, that people aren't actually laying on the ground when they say that. But in the North, again, you can go back into, 1500s, 1400s, and read documents about people getting on the ground. But again, what it shows you is that in the language are vestiges and elements of things that are much older, things that are still found in the North to this day. So again, we should travel, we should try to open our eyes and visit the North, the Northern experience.
So thank you very much, all of you, for listening to us. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. It has been such a great